College Football Playoff Selection Show, presented by AT&T.
College football playoff is set. We showed you just a little bit after noon Eastern time. LSU moved into the number 1 seed. They will be in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl against Oklahoma. Sooners in for the third straight year. LSU making its first appearance. The other semifinal will be in the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl. Ohio State, after 2-year absence from the playoff, despite winning the Big Ten now for the third straight year, they return to the place where Clemson whacked them the last time they were there, and the Tigers are back into the playoff for the 5th straight year, the reigning national champions and the authors of a 28-game winning streak, the longest in college football. Reese Davis, Jesse Palmer, David Pollack, Joey Galloway, Kirk Herbstreit, Chris Felica, the Bears over across the way. And it is 3 o'clock Eastern time, and we have just been handed, or not handed, we're about to show you
Zach,
the New Year's
graphics?
Six Bowl.
Okay.
Zach in graphics, the most powerful man in college
football.
For just a few fleeting moments. When the top 4 comes in, and then
back
when
to
we
Reese
have
Davis.
these. What? Yeah.
To me, this is as big what the committee's about to do as the 4. We get excited about the 4, but I love these other bowl games.
And this is fun.
Oh,
this is
yeah.
where you really have some fun now. Some great matches.
There's
is
a lot
money,
of mystery,
too.
There's a lot of mystery for a lot of players out there that are eagerly anticipating where they're going to end up playing.
or who's not going to play.
You know, and that's something too. But I wonder, and look, I know there's still going to be a lot of that, but I wonder if it's a little bit different in terms of teams showing up ready to play, not necessarily guys sitting out.
Yeah.
But teams showing up, because there's no one that was really crestfallen or devastated by the fact that they didn't make the playoff this year. It was pretty clear cut for a change this year. Are we ready to show them? Does Zach have everything loaded up in there? Let's do it. And let's start with the grandfather of them all. And it will be the Oregon Ducks. After winning the Pac-12, they're ranked number 6 by the College Football Playoff Committee. They get in there to the Rose Bowl against Wisconsin. Displaced Big Ten champion Ohio State, replaced by the team that they lost to them in the championship.
I think we all wondered, Wisconsin, Penn State, they were so close last week. Great to see the committee doesn't penalize Wisconsin for getting that bonus game against the Buckeyes for the second time. The Badgers, in my opinion, should be in the Rose Bowl ahead of Penn State.
Me too, and I think the big key there was Minnesota, their win against Minnesota. Wisconsin by 21 points, of course, a team that beat Penn State. I think it's a big reason why Wisconsin, with 3 losses, is getting in over a 2-loss Penn State.
How about Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game? That Oregon team that knocked off Utah and really made Utah look like they were a slower football team and not as physical. That Oregon Ducks team we saw in that game looks like they can go toe-to-toe with Wisconsin in being physical and handling the line of scrimmage.
That's what Mario Cristobal prides himself on.
A couple of teams with checkered Rose Bowl histories. Bear, you're looking at that 6 beside the Ducks. You thought you could derive something from that. Oregon's ranked 6 in the final standing.
Yeah, and I think earlier in the show, if you listen to Rob Mullins, I think he kind of let it slip that Georgia was 5th, and they actually looked at Oklahoma versus Georgia for that 4 or 5 spot. How seriously, I don't know, but it brings me back to something that Kirk and I were talking about Friday back in Santa Clara. What if Oregon would not have played Auburn? What if they were 12-1 and played Colorado State? I think they would be in the thick of the college football playoff discussion right now. They very easily could be number 4 for Oklahoma. It's one of those catch-22s. You want to play the big game. We love seeing these big early non-conference games in the regular season, but at the same time, until the committee rewards a team somehow for playing in the game and not just winning it, it's a hard thing. You look, they did lose the game, but at the same time, should they really be docked a full loss for deciding to play Auburn in a neutral field in a game that they led for, 55 minutes?
Maybe so, but when you say that, sometimes I feel like it diminishes like the Arizona State loss. But it also has to matter.
That's the loss that matters is Arizona State.
And that's the thing, too. Remember, that's a crossover division game in the Pac-12 where they play 9 conference games. That's another, it brings into a whole different conversation about uniform scheduling and all sorts of things.
But the out-of-conference schedule has helped people in the past. It has just hurt people. So they have shown that in the past with Ohio State and Oklahoma.
But it is fair to say that winning has helped. That is the Rose Bowl game presented by Northwestern Mutual, New Year's Day, 5 o'clock Eastern time, the traditional spot, the foot of the San Gabriels, the Ducks and the Badgers. That'll be a good one. Let's see the next New Year's Six Bowl. It is the All-State Sugar Bowl, and Georgia, highest-ranked SEC team not making the playoff, displaced LSU. Dogs laid an egg when they went down there and played Texas last year. Now they go down and take on Baylor. Baylor going to the Sugar Bowl for the first time since 1957.
And just think about the physicalness of this game right here. This is two physical defense. Offenses have kind of been finding their way throughout the season. There'll be no shortage of bloody noses and good line play in this game.
One of the issues that Georgia had in this game last year, they had a lot of NFL prospects sit out of this one.
Watched.
And so it'll be interesting to see with guys like DeAndre Swift, who is a bit banged up right now. Thomas, and some other players as well. Are they going to be fully loaded? Are they going to be motivated this time around? I would imagine after what happened last year, you're going to see the best version of Kirby Smart in the Dogs.
They better show up motivated because Matt Rule is going to have his team ready to roll and play in this game. And congratulations to Baylor after, what were they, 1-11 2 years ago?
Yep.
And to now, 3 years later, to have Baylor in a New Year's Six bowl game, a major accomplishment.
We said it verbally, and we apologize for the graphic snafu there. Obviously, with Georgia laid an egg against Texas, clearly they lost the Sugar Bowl last year. They did not win it. Just to clear up, in case you happen to be watching the closed captioning and just reading the graphic. Capital One Orange Bowl, Virginia, after getting throttled in the ACC championship game, hangs in the standings. New Year's Six Bowl for the first time, and here come the Gators, ranked number 9.
I think this is a great chance for the ACC to make a statement, and we talked about the ACC not being very good all season long, it just being Clemson's the conference to win. And so now Virginia gets a chance to go against the Gators, a top 10 SEC football team with a chance to make a statement, which will matter to the entire conference going forward.
Yeah. Do you mind if I tell? Herbie and I have this some nonverbal communication from the years on game day. He's like, what? He wants me to explain. ACC. This is a tie with the ACC.
They lose their champ.
Lose the champ. Replace him with Virginia.
Right,
Can't have Notre Dame or obviously.
No, that's on the other side. The other side
Notre
is
Dame,
SEC,
Big Ten,
or Notre Dame.
How about the job Dan Mullen's done, though, guys, in his 2 years now? Back-to-back 10-win seasons, New Year's Six Bowl appearances. Kyle Trask, a guy that couldn't start in high school because he was behind Eric King. Felipe Franks goes down early. Trask steps in. It's been the best passing offense they've had since Tim Tebow was playing quarterback.
I think Danny Mullen is maybe one of the best jobs he's done with a lot of great quarterbacks over the years. Nice collection of wide receivers. Talented backfield with P. Ryan leading the way. I like that team, and I like their attitude. Got much better when Felipe Franks went out and Trask came in. Not just a quarterback. Overall, their team seemed to rally around that underdog mentality with Trask in there.
Rocket Mendenhall did a pretty good job, too.
Sure did.
I mean, if you think about this, Baylor and them, back-to-back, looking at both those teams, you talk about two teams that were in bad spots over the past several years and have climbed out of that. And again, you know what you're getting with Virginia.
Yep.
They're always going to be physical. They're going to give you everything they got. Athletically, they're not the best, but Bryce Perkins
Quarterback
will be a one-man show.
Yeah,
be a one-man show.
Bryce Perkins throwing it 50 times a game is not
good.
Not
running
good.
it 50 would be good.
Run it 50 times.
That defense is serious, though, on the front seven.
The one thing I've noticed, all of these teams should be either excited to be there or wanting to prove something. The exception normally would be Baylor, but Baylor has been out of the big-time bowl games for so long, they'll be fired up to be there as well. Yeah. Virginia's going to be excited to be there despite losing in the conference championship game. Capital One Orange Bowl, December 30th, 8 o'clock Eastern on ESPN. So that leaves us with the final New Year's Six Bowl. It is the Cotton Bowl. Memphis is the highest-ranked champion from the group of 5, the American and Mike Norvell, apparently on his way to Florida State. And they will take on James Franklin's Nittany Lions. Penn State going to the Cotton Bowl for the first time since 1975.
It's another situation with a conference like the American. If you'd like to gain some respect, these are the moments where you get your shot. You play a top 10 team from the Big Ten. The American Conference gets a chance to earn some respect if they can go in and win this game.
That's 3 teams from the Big Ten in New Year's Six bowl games. It's a big accomplishment for that conference. Shows the depth, especially up at the top of that conference. Penn State misses out. I'm sure they would have loved to have gone to Pasadena, but instead of sliding out of the New Year's Six, they're in one of them, and they take on Memphis. And Memphis loses Norvell to Florida State. I haven't heard. Is he staying on to
coach? Well, he said that he is going to stay.
Kind of like Scott Frost did.
Right. Yeah, you see
Maybe so, and this is where I'll say, in my judgment, if you take a new job,
Got to get.
Go.
job.
You should go.
Take the new job.
Yeah,
Yes,
I mean,
go.
your new employer shouldn't want you to coach, and your old employer shouldn't
Yeah,
want
but
you
I
to
mean, with that being said, there have been a lot of examples where guys just don't want to let go of their team from this year.
Want to lead them one more time.
They want to finish it
Finish
off.
what you start.
So they try to put a staff together and they try to get recruiting going. It's different now because of the early signing period. But nonetheless, Memphis
For
well
Memphis, I
deserving.
mean, they knew this was the year that this was going to have to happen. 16 starters back from last year, experienced team, and they've been battle tested too. They beat Cincinnati twice, a 10-win team. They beat SMU, a 10-win team, 9-win UCF, 9-win Navy. They played against a lot of good quality opponents, and now they get a chance to finish the season against a very talented Penn State.
You named those teams in their conference, though, and I think the American, as we always say, Power 5, and they don't like you to say that.
Power 6.
You know, Power 6, they want you. Well, this is the moment. These are your chances. If you want to be considered a Power 6, these are your chances in the moments. UCF pulled it off a few years back against Auburn, and now Memphis has a chance to do the same thing. You go in and you win this game against a Penn State team, then coming into the next season, your conference, including your team, Memphis, that wins the game, gets a lot more respect.
A lot of points in this one, too.
If you go on the field, that's what I was about to say. If you go on the field, the weakness of Penn State all year long has been the passing game. Memphis can throw the football. They got a balanced offense.
Pretty white.
This should be a fun matchup on the field. I mean, I know the motivation and all that, who plays, all that stuff will come into play, but I just think on the field, Penn State's secondary versus the weapons and the offense that because Mike Norvell has lost his offensive coordinator before, and the offenses seem to still roll. No matter who it is, he's always done a great job with his quarterback, Brady White and company. We'll have some
With
success
that being
passing.
said, the line of scrimmage favors Penn State
No doubt.
in a big way.
Yeah, and getting Sean Clifford back healthy, too.
But it has, for every matchup for Penn State except for Ohio State, and they still found ways to.
They got to get pressure.
Yes.
Highest ranked Group of 5 champion, Memphis checking in at 17, some around the American, and felt like they hadn't quite been given their due. I mean, Memphis lost one game. It was a little bit controversial in terms of a late call against Temple on the road, and able to sweep Cincinnati a couple of times, a team that the committee had ranked for most of the season. So we're ready now for the rest of the rankings?
We waited more than 3 hours.
We are ready. Final rankings brought to you by AT&T. We're counting up. Oklahoma State stays in. Virginia, too. Navy. College game day is going to be in Philadelphia for Army Navy this weekend. And Cincinnati.
And that shows you how much the committee respects the American Conference and Memphis as an opponent. Cincinnati's now lost back-to-back games against Memphis. They haven't slid very far down the
I think
range.
2 spots. I think 2 spots in those two straight losses, and I agree with you. I think it's saying they respect Memphis, they respect Cincinnati, and both games have been relatively close.
USC keeping its coach. We'll find out a little bit later on where the Trojans' bowl destination is in the postseason as Clay Helton is sticking around. Let's look at number 20 and up to 16. Appalachian State, conference champions again, 12-1. Boise State, champions of the Mountain West at 19. How about PJ Fleck? Probably going to one of the Big Ten tie bowls in Florida, either the Citrus or the Outback, and then Memphis, you know where they're headed, in Iowa. It's really good ranking schedule for the Big Ten right now.
Really is. So, again, we talked just a little earlier about the depth that they've had with the improvement of Minnesota, and then you have some of the traditional powers that always seem to be up in the top 20. Kirk Ferentz, I mean, it's just like every year it's going to be 9, maybe 10. They might catch a break and get into the mix. But that's about as consistent of a brand and the style of ball that they play as you're going to find in the country.
Iowa sitting at 16. Let's go now to 15 through 11. This will be interesting how all of these teams stack up. Notre Dame and Michigan still 14-15. Auburn, despite losing one more game, but by virtue of that 3-point win over Alabama, still ahead of the Crimson. The Crimson Tide got punished for a field goal loss and a 5-point loss to the number 1 team.
So they go to 5-12 because of that loss in the Iron Bowl. Utah, after kind of that performance in the Pac-12 championship game, they were sitting at number 5, and just the way they got dominated physically up front, they don't finish with any wins against a team currently ranked in the top 25.
But I think
they slide 6
like
spots.
you said, Jesse, the way they played, the perception of that game didn't do them any favors, because if they would have lost and competed, they'd probably slide down and maybe have a chance to go ahead of Penn State. But the way they played, the committee put them all the way down.
I think it was Alabama at 13, Auburn at 12. I mean, we talked about LSU's resume and why LSU is ranked number 1 right now. Well, you got Alabama at 13, Auburn at 12. You got Florida's going to be in that top 10. You got Georgia up in it.
There's 4 right there.
This speaks to what they've done for the top 13.
You know what the interesting thing is, and I know Tua's hurt, but as it pertains to Alabama, Alabama's still in the top 4 in the FBI.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the biggest discrepancy.
Yeah,
Right?
it almost feels like, all right, Bama, you've gotten all the breaks over the last 5 years. Guess what? This 1 year, back in the line. Back in the line.
Completely get out the way.
You don't
Just
see
get
that.
out of the way.
We're so used to seeing them in semifinals and
Yeah.
national championships, at minimum New Year's Six bowl games.
Yep.
It's not often you see them. I think they played in the Capital One Bowl a while back.
Who are they going to play?
Yeah.
They're going to play.
What's
They're
their
playing
motivation?
Michigan.
What's
Play Michigan in the Citrus Bowl.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
out now?
Yeah.
Glad you're on top of
Yeah,
that.
I'm on top of stuff.
That would
I
be
just gotta
I've been rooting it for our fans, bro.
There you go. No, that's a good one, right?
Yeah.
That's a
Try to
tremendous
help.
matchup. And
Reese is doing everything. Reese has got everything here. I'm just a shooting guard. I'm the left.
Would you like to keep going? Give us 10 through 6.
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
you're just
let's
rolling
do
here.
that.
don't
Let's
know
get
anything.
in. I think we know most of it, but let's put it up in graphic form if we have it, because you're able to see with the New Year's Six bowls where teams were ranked. We saw Penn State ranked at number 10, 10-2. Penn State on its way to the Cotton Bowl to take on Memphis. Florida going to the Capital One Orange Bowl at 10-2. At number 9. So all of these, just let you see them in stacked up order. Wisconsin, after losing to Ohio State, had the lead in the first half. 2 of the 3 losses coming against the team that wound up ranked second in the Buckeyes. The other one, an inexplicable loss on the road, is a huge favorite against Illinois. Probably kept Wisconsin for playing for a spot in the college football playoff.
Think about that.
That lost to Illinois midseason. That's why every game on some level does indeed count. And Baylor not really punished much at all for the overtime loss. Nor should they have been, by the way.
They represented
the overtime
themselves
loss
well.
against Oklahoma.
Third string quarterback coming in there, keeping them in that game, competing, go to the end with a team.
And he was
that
the best
makes
quarterback they
playoff.
had in that game. He played better than the other 2 guys.
I think you saw from the bowl matchups, too, where we are at 5 and 6. So let's look at these 2 just to make it official. They're the top 4 going to the playoff. The ones just on the outside looking in, Georgia just slips 1 spot to 5, and right behind them would be Oregon at 6. I don't think, terribly productive to get too exercised over these rankings once you get past the season and get into the playoff. I'm a little surprised that Georgia, after the performance yesterday, didn't take a little bit more.
I think it has a lot to do with the resume and 3 top
true.
15 wins with Notre Dame and Florida and Auburn. And then, of course, the defense had been dominant all season long. I think the injuries and, again, the suspension on offense late in the season, I think the committee was willing to overlook that. And obviously they respect them to only have them fall 1 spot after a convincing loss
And
against LSU.
we saw the gap, and we talked about the gap all morning between 1, 2, 3, and everybody else. So anybody else you want to throw up there to go get massacred by LSU? It's probably going to happen. I mean, we talked about that all morning long. So it was an ugly loss. It wasn't pretty at all. But, I mean, every team in there would probably have the same faith against LSU, Ohio State, and
Clemson.
I think I agree with you, Reese. I'm surprised that Georgia's still sitting at number 5, and not just because of the LSU game, but offensively the past 3 or 4 weeks.
Limited.
They
Six.
just haven't looked very good.
Yeah.
And we understand they have injuries, but this isn't a situation where it's like they're going to get these guys back later on, and then you rank them by that.
And let's be
I just
honest,
don't think they look like the
their
fifth
offense
best
has
team.
been they've been stuck in third gear all year.
A big question mark the
You know,
entire
and-
year.
Yeah, so I don't think it's, well, they're injured, they'd be better. The combination of James Coley and those receivers, it never produced. We just never saw what we potentially would have loved to have seen from Georgia. I think Joey brought up a great point. This debate earlier about LSU and Ohio State, and you put up a graphic and it might show Ohio State with 5 wins over top 25 teams. At the end of the day, LSU with those 4 wins over top 13 opponents, I think that you're sitting in that room, the committee, that definitely outweighed anything
I think
when it comes down to Ohio State. and
especially
LSU.
the one at Alabama. Like, to me, if there's one signature win all season long, with a healthy Alabama with Tua on offense, going into Bryant-Denny like that, and snapping their 31-game home win streak and winning. They gave up 41 points, but that's sort of that's been our point about, whether or not LSU is a complete team. It doesn't always matter if you're struggling on defense when you just simply outscore everybody. When no one can stop you in Joe Burrow, that would, to me, was as impressive a win as we've seen from any team this year.
Okay, so we have the top 25, the final rankings from the College Football Playoff Committee. Remember, they don't do a postseason rankings. Their job is to set the field for the playoff, get the New Year's Six bowls lined up, and establish the rankings. After that, what happens? Selection has nothing to do with performance. Now it's up to the teams to perform. But we get to evaluate the selection committee's performance in the rankings as Rob Mullins rejoins us now, the chair of the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. So, Rob, what was the most vigorous debate outside of the top 4 playoff teams in terms of the rankings? All of us here expressed some surprise that Georgia was able to hold at number 5 despite being really overwhelmed by LSU yesterday?
Well, there's a lot of conversation between 5 and 10, even 11. But when you look at Georgia's resume, those 3 wins over top 25 teams really held the day for the committee. We also spent a lot of time making sure that we went deep into the group of 5 to make sure that we got that right, given what was on the line.
Okay, when you look at these, how much consideration is given in the room? Look, I've gone through the exercise before. It's easy to sit back and have observers say there's some type of orchestration going on to set up this matchup or that one, or to take care of this conference or rectify old ills. How much is done to try to look at it and balance and make sure that you have some new matchups and things like that as it pertains to how teams wind up being ranked?
Zero. Our job is to identify each year and to only look at that year and to make sure that we rank the best teams 1 through 25, and that's what we do. What was the difference, and it ended up being the difference in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic between Penn State and Utah? Obviously Penn State has those wins against ranked opponents, and Utah doesn't. The committee really valued Utah all year. We're really impressed with them. But they had 2 opportunities to play ranked teams. And when you're getting in this neighborhood of folks that play some ranked teams, that becomes a separator. Okay, ranked teams is something that you've returned to several times. Victories over ranked teams when you're balancing it against maybe losses against mediocre teams. Which carries the day with this particular committee? It's never one thing or the other, and that's the challenge in explaining all this. You're looking at those full resumes, and each one is in degrees, and the beauty of a committee is you have 13 football experts who can weight it how they want. But we put all those things on the table. We talk about the good wins. We talk about the losses. We even talk about how they happen in a sequence. So it's all the above. When you look at the bowl matchups, though, what's your reaction to the work that the committee wound up with in terms of getting the bowls and getting the teams ranked in this order? Well, we've spent a lot of time over the last 6 weeks watching these games, evaluating each teams, having great debate. The committee came prepared. We spent a lot of time on each team. And again, our job is to get 1 through 25. The slots fall as they may. And, we're excited about seeing what happens in postseason. The one reaction that several of us had on the set was seeing Alabama fall to 13. And it's beyond dispute that Alabama doesn't have any great wins. But prior to that close loss in a bizarre, wild game, entertaining game at Auburn, football judgment seemed to carry the day for Alabama's evaluation. What changed? Well, I think that was similar to Utah and Alabama. We were watching those games and football judgment was carrying the day, or what we were seeing in the performance. But when they had the opportunity against the ranked opponents, even though it wasn't as many as some other teams, that impacted the judgment, especially when you're looking at the teams above them who are winning some of those games. When you think back over the time that you guys spent together this weekend, what was the most vigorous debate, top to bottom? 1-2. That's where we spent the most time. Obviously, we've done that for several weeks. Those teams are really close. They're great teams. So that's probably where the most debate was. How many votes did you end up taking for the top? I think 2 overall. Did the results change from one to the next? No. And that's all I'm getting on that? No? Was it close the first time? No, I mean, we spent considerable time on it. As you know, we meet right after the games on Saturday. We met until 1 in the morning. We had a lot of debate. We put a vote on. We put LSU 1, Ohio State 2. We went back, got some rest, came back, and engaged in it again to make sure that we got it right. Put it to a vote and had the same result. When we spoke earlier, Rob, right after the top 4 was revealed, you sort of alluded to the fact that we were likely to see Georgia at number 5. It seemed very clear-cut to all of us that it would be Oklahoma getting that last playoff spot. How vigorous was the debate among now what we know, those next 3 teams, Oklahoma, who got the spot, then Georgia and Oregon after that, understanding that you have to recuse yourself when Oregon's on the board being discussed? Right. The committee, we want to make sure we're thorough. Even on the top 3 teams, we appoint someone to make a case for each of those teams as number one. Similar for 4 and 5. You want to make sure that you're comparing Oklahoma to what is the committee felt was the number 5 team, and we did that as a matter of process. But it was clear Oklahoma was number 4.
Rob, we appreciate your time once again. Thanks for all the insight into the workings of the committee, and get yourself some rest. It's just 3 weeks away from the college football playoff semifinal. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Reese.
All right, Rob Mullins.
He's so happy to be done with you.
Yeah, I know.
He is ecstatic to be
Always
done
a tough
with you.
spot.
It is.
Rob and I get along famously.
He has to speak for everybody when he's not even in there. And he might not even believe, that LSU is number 1. But he has to give what everybody else's facts are and come together. So that's an extremely tough job.
To mention, Reese is
definitely
asking tough questions.
Oh, yeah.
And he really can't divulge too much information.
I feel like he's been pretty good, though, throughout the last couple of weeks. Like, he's been locked and loaded.
Little nuggets.
With resumes,
Yeah.
wins, injuries. They do a lot of research. People at home have to understand how many different factors they're all considering. This 13-member committee, each and every week to come up with this piece of paper and these final rankings. It's a lot.
Meanwhile, Reese is going Greg Schiano on him. I was
about to say, Nolan Ryan came in throwing but you've been doing it all season long. You've been coming with the fastball heater. There's been a couple times where I'm impressed.
But
Reese
later,
is coming.
But I think the thing is that you do it later in the season. The first couple of weeks, you got to give him some room.
Is this the setup?
Yeah. But the one thing that I want them to do, and I've been hammering Bill Hancock on this, and Jeff Long, and Kirby Hocutt, and Rob. I want to know the numbers. I want to know, for instance, I asked a question a couple of weeks ago. How much support is Clemson getting from number 1? That was going to tell me how many of the 11 people in the room, LSU and Ohio State, were deciding. That can tell you the things that you and I talk about. How many people need to change their mind?
I'm with you.
That's what I want to know.
All I know is we've never gotten that information.
They say it's hard to get.
And this year, I don't know if you've been working out. I don't know what it is, but you've come with a different.
Don't even.
He's in better shape this year. Doing a better job.
So is this guy. I don't know what you're feeding him, but this guy hit me in the ribs a second ago. Hey, dude.
It's probably because you made fun of him working out earlier. Talking about you going up there and working out. He doesn't.
Joey jumping on the treadmill, at 15?
Yeah, every now and then.
There's a great story behind that.
Yeah. All of us just trying to keep up with Palmer over here.
Oh, yeah.
He's got going on.
PEDs.
Wait a minute. Look, there's still a long time for people to get in the ears. There are a lot of rumblings around Tuscaloosa that they're going to play, and some of them might play next year.
Well,
all of them. I don't know about all of them.
Well, I was with
There's
two,
always rumbling in December, Reese.
Yeah, I know. That's why I offered
Harris,
the
too.
caveat.
I was with 2 on Tuesday. He said that, I don't know if it's led by him, they're having a players-only meeting with the guys that are deciding to stay or go. I don't know if it's going to be we're all either all in or we're all out, but it kind of felt like that. So we'll see.
Is that when he had his Santa Claus pajamas on?
That was when he had his Santa Claus pajamas. Love that kid.
You know what? That was something you were really touched and moved by the time that you spent with him.
I was also with his parents. I mean, I think there's a great appreciation for his spirit. It's just he's been through a lot, and yet he stays positive. But I think much like Joe Burrow, his team looks at him exactly the same way. So we'll see. I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that they're all out at all.
No, nor do I. And, a lot of it's going to be determined on the draft and where they're going to be placed and all of that. But there's also a sense of, I think there's a sense of the proverbial, if I had a nickel for everybody that has some unfinished business, I'd be a really rich man. But,
then there's Clemson that did it and came back and went undefeated, and it meant something to that group.
You're already a rich man, too. So it doesn't matter.
You're very good with that.
Not as rich as you. You build your own gyms. Camping World Bowl is now out there, and Notre Dame against Iowa State is at noon on ABC.
I like that.
28th, that's the day of the semifinals. That's a great way to get the day started.
Matt Campbell has done an unbelievable job at Iowa State, and he deserves that, absolutely. But imagine, now getting that program on stages like this, in bowl games where you're winning 8-9 games a season, you're getting to go play against Notre Dame. Brock Purdy has been one of the more fun quarterbacks to watch this year, scrambling around, throwing the ball. It's going to be fun to watch.
And College Game Day will lead to that game, looks like, right?
Yep.
We'll have a game day on that day,
right? That's on semifinal day.
I think I love about Herbie. You have the game day producer.
I saw the 28th.
You're thinking about it. What's going to lead in?
Yeah.
You know what channel you want to start?
We're always thinking, man, it looks like
put it on
fun.
the Deuce and
You
bring
guys
it
go to Arizona. That's great.
And
Joey will be in Atlanta.
College Game Day will be
courtside
from
Phoenix.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, you got. So that's.
You join us on the
guys
bird.
are going to Phoenix.
You join us on the bird.
You know what?
Selfish.
You know what?
We can book it.
You might get great weather too.
Oh, really?
You might.
It hadn't happened in recent years.
We're going to be indoors.
Yeah, exactly. She will.
Listen to Gino trying to root for the underdog when he goes out and picks and chooses. Remember, he's recruiting the country. Find a few underdogs.
College
He's
football
watching this
fan,
game.
man.
Yeah,
He
wants
is.
to
He's
break
a
it
great
down.
fan. He's a great fan and a great dude.
Hey, if we ever
too.
go to UConn, we can be guest picker.
No question. He'd be awesome.
Well, that won't happen. So
No.
we'll try to find another location.
I thought you said it was a day for celebration.
No, that's off the radar, man. I mean, we've been to
That
some crazy
celebration
places
was in the
this year.
first couple hours.
We ain't ever
Now
going
it's
to
like,
Never.
Come
that's
on,
not
man.
nice. That's not nice.
Why are you hating on the home game for me? All right. Hey, listen, a minute to go. I'm going to let you guys change your minds if you want to at the end.
Perfect.
Who wins?
Clemson. I'm going to say Clemson, the defending national champion, big game experience, Trevor Lawrence, playmakers, total team defense with a chip on their shoulder, wanting to prove that they're the best team in the country.
The Chase Young University.
I'm going to Ohio State also. I think there will be a better team having gone through what they did in the Big Ten championship game, facing that adversity down 14 at halftime, making those adjustments. They'll be angry. They'll be a better football team. They win it all.
And Kirk's not picking because he's going to be calling the games, including the national championship game too. So you can give.
I just
You
hope
can,
we're right game.
you can get up and leave again like you did earlier. You
Yeah.
can just leave.
I
the
think I'll go down right now.
It's time for you to leave.
Yeah,
He's going to leave Connecticut anyways.
Kirk recuses himself from the pick. So basically, what you have is this side of the set. That side. You know what?
You got Clemson too?
To Ohio State. Who you got?
Clemson.
You got Clemson.
Yeah, Clemson.
All right,
All right.
see, it's all right, over here on this side, winning side.